It has been 3 months since his battle with Angstrom. Mark Grayson, aka Invincible, continues training under Cecil's supervision to gain enough strength to compete with the Viltrumites. He is fighting a giant mutant under the close observation of the GDA as part of his intense training. Mark dives into an active volcano and endures record-breaking minutes inside, flies to and from planets in space at incredible speeds, and lifts an entire iceberg in the North Pole, the heaviest object they could find. He is truly living up to the name Invincible. Back at the GDA, Mark continues heavy lifting with a machine to keep improving, while Cecil and Donald discuss his progress. Unfortunately, his personal life is not going as well. He has been avoiding Eve since they last met. They are then joined by Rex Splode, who expresses interest in teaming up with Mark to stop another crime downtown at the museum. Mark and Rex attempt to stop two thieves, Dropkick and Fightmaster, from stealing the Declaration of Independence. Though the thieves aren't particularly skilled in one-on-one combat, they suddenly come under attack by Kate's brother Multipaul, who seeks revenge for his sister's death. Taking advantage of the chaos, Dropkick and Fightmaster escape with the Declaration of Independence. Meanwhile, Multipaul mercilessly beats Rex to a pulp, enraging Invincible. In his fury, Invincible massacres hundreds of Multipaul's clones while trying to reach Rex. Fortunately, Kate and Immortal show up just in time to stop her brother Paul from attacking. However, Invincible refuses to back down, knocks Paul out, and takes him into custody for the GDA penitentiary. Kate and the Immortal come out of retirement, while Ray returns to the Guardians at their headquarters. Rex is over the moon to have Ray back. Meanwhile, Mark meets up with William and his boyfriend Rick. They encourage him to confess his feelings and ask Eve out, but warn him against revealing anything about her future self. As a favor, Mark flies their car to campus after they run out of gas. After much thought, Mark goes to see Eve at her treehouse deep in the jungle. They greet each other and talk about everyday things, both fully aware of the elephant in the room. As Mark tries to express his true feelings, he accidentally brings up the other version of Eve who approached him after he defeated Angstrom. Furious, Eve sees this as nothing more than a pity-driven interest and rejects him outright. Meanwhile, Rex is trying to enjoy a relaxing shower when the ground suddenly opens up beneath him, swallowing him whole. Donald reports to Cecil that a massive number of earthquakes are occurring across the USA, and the situation is spiraling out of control. They soon discover that all superheroes have vanished from their radar tracking system, except for Adam, Eve, and Invincible, who are having a moment at her treehouse. Cecil immediately contacts Mark and orders both of them to return to base at once. Somehow, Doc Seismic has managed to break out of confinement and has kidnapped Earth superheroes using giant underground creatures. He is holding them in confinement globes deep underground, surrounded by his Hellfire creatures. Mark and Eve arrive at the caverns just in time, knowing that Doc is highly unpredictable. They take on the creatures themselves, but even for Invincible, the sheer number of enemies proves overwhelming as they attack from every direction. Mark loses his focus when Eve is attacked and, in the process, both of them are knocked out and captured. The two of them are imprisoned as well. When Mark and Eve fail to save the heroes, Cecil is left with no choice but to resort to a dark plan he never imagined he would have to use. He sends in Darkwing 2 and the Reanimen to assist, with Darkwing 2 successfully recapturing Doc Seismic. However, the Reanimen release the captured heroes, and together they launch a full-scale assault on the Hellfire creatures. In the end, Doc is subdued by Darkwing 2, who traps him within his Shadowverse. After the grueling battle, Mark confronts Cecil for deceiving him and working alongside Darkwing 2 and Sinclair. Cecil attempts to reason with him, but Mark refuses to listen. Frustrated and out of options, Cecil traps him in the White Room, a facility specifically designed to contain Mark. Meanwhile, back at the Viltrumite prison, Alan and Nolan bond while imprisoned, as the Viltrumites begin testing Alan to uncover the source of his newfound strength. Even their high-tech lasers fail to pierce his body. A young Cecil Stedman, a field agent for the Global Defense Agency, GDA, is dispatched to a small town to stop the Order of the Freeing Fist from detonating a bomb containing Chemical X. Upon arriving at a local store marked by a mysterious symbol, Cecil steps inside and is greeted by a clerk who asks how she might help him find inner peace. Dismissing her inquiry as irrelevant in the face of danger, Cecil draws his gun and orders everyone to evacuate. Proceeding into the back room, where she follows him, Cecil searches for clues and radios headquarters that the tip appears to be a bust. Hidden in a closet, he discovers the bomb. Suddenly, the clerk attacks him, revealing herself as Knucklebuster, member of the Order. She taunts him, saying that although he found the hideout, he is too late to stop them. After the bomb is activated, Chemical X begins leaking, its corrosive substance melting the skin of Force Fist and Knucklebuster as they approach the device. Cecil rushes forward and shoves both insurgents into a closet with the bomb, slamming the door shut. The chemical is dissolving his skin. Moments later, backup agents arrive. He later awakens at the Pentagon, where advanced medical treatments have replaced most of his damaged skin with artificial substitutes. In a tense debriefing with Director Radcliffe, Cecil demands to know the casualty count. Radcliffe explains that while thousands were at risk, only 17 people perished when the gas leaked into a nearby market, a number he downplays as a small fraction of what could have been. Not long after his recovery, the Pentagon comes under attack. While assisting an injured Radcliffe, Cecil refuses to abandon him and fights off the assailants. Amid the chaos, Force Fist and Knucklebuster, now fully recovered, reappear to rescue them. Radcliffe then reveals that the Order of the Freeing Fist has allied with the GDA, a decision Cecil finds utterly unacceptable. Enraged by what he sees as a betrayal, Cecil seizes his gun and shoots both operatives, declaring that he will not cooperate with criminals, regardless of their supposed redemption. Following these events, Cecil is imprisoned alongside some of the most dangerous convicts under GDA control. Remarkably, his presence imposes unexpected order within the prison, significantly reducing violence over the years. During a visit, Radcliffe informs Cecil that he is stepping down as director of the GDA to join a special projects group, and, to Cecil's surprise, offers him the position. Although Radcliffe commends him for restoring stability, Cecil remains bitter, insisting that the prison was meant as punishment, not rehabilitation. He refuses the offer, burdened by the weight of his past failures and determined to avoid repeating his mistakes. His decision reflects a personal code that values accountability over authority, leaving Radcliffe and others to wonder if true redemption is ever possible. Cecil's defiance not only highlights his inner turmoil, but also sets the stage for further conflict within the organization. In a stark white chamber lined with Rhiannomen, Cecil confronts Mark, who has grown disillusioned with the GDA's methods. Mark accuses Cecil of using robotic enforcers to suppress renegade heroes like Darkwing and Sinclair, calling it a betrayal of their ideals. Their verbal clash escalates as Cecil counters Mark's accusations, arguing that his own hard-earned experience grants him the authority to decide what is necessary for the world's survival. As the argument intensifies, Cecil produces a handheld device engineered to emit an agonizing frequency, its sound wave modeled after a monstrous encounter in Atlantis to incapacitate Mark. Although Mark tears out his external earpiece in resistance, Cecil reveals that a deep implanted device within his skull prevents full escape from the sonic assault. After briefly ceasing the attack, Cecil reactivates the device, forcing Mark into retreat while ordering his personnel to track the renegade's every move. This brutal encounter marks a pivotal shift, exposing fractures within the GDA and setting the stage for escalating internal conflict. Following the intense confrontation, the fallout spreads throughout the superhero community. At the Guardians of the Globe headquarters, discontent simmers among members such as Rex, Bulletproof, Shrinking Ray, Monster Girl, and Rudy. Heated debates erupt over Cecil's ruthless methods, especially after his severe treatment of Mark. Some members criticize his reliance on lethal devices and coercion, arguing that his actions betray the true spirit of heroism. A faction led by Rex and Monster Girl chooses to leave the team, insisting that they cannot work under someone who disregards moral boundaries. Meanwhile, Mark returns home, where he confides in his family about Cecil's betrayal. His mother, Debbie, is distraught over broken promises, while his brother and close friends express shock at the unfolding events. At an Italian restaurant during a tense date, Debbie struggles to mask her sorrow as she discusses the chaos that has upended their lives. Later, in a quiet moment, Mark and his longtime friend Eve share a candid conversation about trust, responsibility, and the heavy burden of heroism. Both acknowledge that, despite past bonds, the true nature of their roles has been irrevocably altered by the relentless pursuit of power and control, leaving no room for compromise. At the GDA, tensions resurface as Cecil returns to address his team. In a debrief with Donald, he reviews reports that remain unchanged since his imprisonment, hinting at a disregard for his leadership. Suddenly, an alert shows a mysterious figure battling an alien creature. Cecil quickly boards a helicopter to a nearby beach, where he meets a stranger from Viltrum, sent to protect Earth. Extending a cautious handshake, Cecil inquires about the man's identity. Back at headquarters, Donald and the team debate whether to trust this newcomer, as Cecil contemplates the uncertain future of their mission while challenges loom ahead. So there's this couple with superpowers, with one being able to melt things with his lava flow ability, another with super elasticity. They're robbing a bank and seem like it's out of desperation. When they notice how scared and broken the people are, they stop with their robbery. Bulletproof shows up to defend the bank and the people, and he chases away the two lovers as they take into hiding to get away from Bulletproof. They come back home and see the piled up bills. Fortunately, they land jobs at the nearby restaurant as kitchen help and are somehow able to make ends meet. Unfortunately, their good times don't last long as they're both kicked out of their jobs as the manager treats them no better than animals. They are once again struggling to figure things out as they lose their apartment and have to go to begging on the streets. Out of desperation, they once again try to rob the bank, and this time, they make it all the way up to the bank safe and escape with the money bags. Just then, Invincible arrives with kicks to the face and body, and soon they are out on the street, fighting to escape from Invincible. But when they gang up on Invincible, Oliver arrives and kicks one of them so hard he gets knocked out on the spot. Mark knocks the other one out and scolds Oliver for interfering with the dangerous fights, but Oliver thinks far better of him, it seems. The two brothers go back home, and Oliver gets an earful from both his mother and brother for sneaking out and trying to fight bad guys. A few days later, Mark receives a new suit from Art Rosenbaum. After getting his own suit, Oliver names himself Kid Omni-Man, and that's when Mark and Art realize it. The kid idolizes his father, and Mark advises against it, explaining the destruction Nolan caused. Attending lectures at the university, Eve runs into Amber, Mac's ex-girlfriend and Eve's good friend. They both catch up after a long time, and it goes well as Eve tells her about Mark and her, while Amber reveals she has a new boyfriend, Kyle. Meanwhile, Master Liu, the ruthless leader of the international crime syndicate, the Order, pays a visit to Titan, demanding that he break his top enforcer Multipol out of the penitentiary. Although Isotope does his best to warn Titan about Master Liu's immense power, Titan remains unmoved. However, after much deliberation, he finally agrees to put his efforts into the jailbreak. Now that was intense. The penitentiary is caught off guard when Titan launches a full-scale assault to bust out Multipol. However, just as the escape unfolds, Invincible arrives to stop Titan from freeing the dangerous criminal. A battle erupts, pushing both sides to their limit. Meanwhile, Debbie, Mark and Oliver's mother, goes on a date with her colleague Paul. As they talk over dinner, Debbie, determined to live without secrets, confesses everything about her life, laying bare all the truths she has kept hidden. Eve moves back in with her parents, promising not to use her powers at home if they become more accepting of her duties as a hero. It's her father, who is really stuck up and needs a lot of convincing. Mark and Oliver return home in their hero costumes and run into their mom and Paul as they make out on the couch. Mark pretends they were fooling around, but Debbie says Paul knows everything, which angers Mark. Eve comes to Mark, and they talk until late at night on their usual spot up on his roof. Mark expresses his thoughts to Eve with everything going on. The Maulers break into a missile silo, planning to launch an EMP device to destroy the world's communication systems, and the two thugs are confronted by the Guardians. One by one, the Immortal, Duplicate, Shapesmith, and finally the Darkwing are all being taken out by the Maulers. The news of Maulers entering a missile silo airs on the news, and they report nothing reported back from the Guardians. They are weak, and that should be reported, I guess. Debbie tells Mark about it, and Mark turns into the new Invincible and flies out to confront the Maulers, At this point, it's all invincible to us. The Maulers are able to hold Mark off, but the real surprise is the young Oliver who barges onto the scene kicking the Maulers out of nowhere. He is even more stubborn than his father. But somehow, the Maulers manage to activate their launch keys and send the EMP device into space. Mark goes after the EMP while Oliver stays back. Well, he then breaks the jaw of one of the Maulers and kills them both one by one. Gruesome yet pitiful deaths. Mark destroys the missile, while Oliver, against his and Debbie's wishes, kills the Maulers. When the GDP arrives and Cecil tries to assess the situation, Mark throws him back and takes his brother Oliver back home. He reveals to Mark his indifference to killing, believing Nolan may be right, worrying Mark. Debbie and Mark explain more about good consciousness to Oliver. While talking with Oliver, Mark notices a floating orb-like drone spying on the Grayson household, which detonates in his hand as he catches it. Unbeknownst to him, the drone belongs to Angstrom, who survived his previous encounter with Mark. The next day, Mark takes the drone to the Guardians and asks Rudy to analyze the drone, which he determines originated from Earth but was created by someone with vast resources. Mark confronts Cecil, believing he built it, but Cecil denies it. Unfortunately, due to all the drama unfolding lately, Mark was not able to take Eve on an amazing first date properly up until now. So later, he takes her to the Eiffel Tower in France to have a romantic dinner and getaway. Even their getaway is not secret enough, as the Fightmaster and Dropkick appear to them from the future and need to take Mark with them so badly it irritates him. Mark refuses to leave Eve once again and comes back to sit with her. Fightmaster and Dropkick have no other choice and forcibly recruit Mark and bring him to their future, believing he can save their Earth from its tyrannical king. As they take him through time, they explain how the king began his rule peacefully, and then with passing centuries, he grew more and more evil, punishing the citizens and ruling their world to the ground. In order to reach the palace, they first create havoc in the streets and catch the eye of the royal guard. They get captured, and the real surprise comes when Mark is presented to the Emperor himself. It's the Immortal. And believe it or not, the Immortal is overjoyed and almost cries with joy when he sees Mark. Immortal explains what happened when future Mark leaves Immortal to rule in his place, and with time as he was driven mad by his immense power and immortality. He blames Mark for his eventual abandonment of Earth and demands he fight him to the death to bring him peace. Reluctantly, Mark fights and is eventually forced to kill the Immortal with his bare hands as he decapitates the Immortal. Returning to the present, a shaken Mark finds solace with Eve. Meanwhile, Nolan faces execution until Alan decides it's time to break free and start the riot. He liberates their fellow inmates, gains Battlebeast's help in fending off the Viltrumites as he releases Battlebeast, promising him a good game with Viltrumites to battle. The bravest thing Alan does is feign defeat to spur Nolan into action. After breaking out, Alan suggests they flee before reinforcements arrive, but Nolan reveals the biggest Viltrumite secret, as the Viltrum Empire now consists of fewer than 50 pure-blooded members. Now that's a shocker. After Mark suggests that he and Eve get their own apartment, she offers Invincible services to a supervillain prison where many attacks happen on a weekly basis. It seems like the couple needs some cash to afford their new place. Debbie is dumbfounded when she discovers Oliver is nowhere to be seen, and later sends the couple out in search of Oliver. Mark and Eve find Oliver after a couple of minutes of flying through the night sky. They see that Oliver has made friends with a couple of kids his age, and they are genuinely playing together. What's surprising is that they even know his skills and abilities, shown when Oliver scares off a bully who came up to them. Okay, now that must have been embarrassing to those guys, right? Mark and Eve are relieved, but Oliver once again gets an earful from his mother and brother upon returning to his house in the middle of the night. Meanwhile, Titan is visited by the leader of the Order, Mr. Liu, and he is once again pressured into breaking out Multipol or facing the consequences. Titan gets goosebumps when Mr. Liu mentions his little daughter's whereabouts. He races back home to check on his daughter and is relieved to see her safe. Titan put his daughter and wife under house protection until he says otherwise and gets on with his master plan. Titan creates a minor-scale disturbance in the penitentiary to get the attention of Invincible, and he lays out the scene onto him. He explains everything about Mr. Liu and the Order while strolling through the streets and requests Invincible's help to take him down. But Invincible readily denies and Titan runs away from him, blending into the crowd. He somehow had everything planned out perfectly. Multipol duplicated himself into hundreds of copies until the mere pressure inside the cell gave in and broke out of his cell, with blood gushing out from every angle with dead copies of Multipol. But the prison guards quickly took him under control by putting him in a suppressing neck collar. Titan manipulates Liu into helping him before they attack the prison holding Multipol. Mr. Liu turns into a living, breathing dragon who is spiritually controlled by his physical body far away in safety. The dragon attacks the penitentiary, and all the prison safety measures are deactivated. The prisoners are free from their cells, and Multipol takes off his collar. Eve arrives and contains all the prisoners so they cannot escape until the situation is under control. But what she cannot do is to suppress Multipol, since he already made a copy for Eve to capture, letting the real Multipol escape. Titan's right-hand man frees Machine Head, who shoots Liu on the spot. What they actually did was first take out Mr. Liu's bodyguard and then shoot him while his mind was controlling the dragon. After the drama has unfolded and everything taken under control, Mark and Eve decide to take their relationship at a slow pace. Machine Head assumes control of the Order and shows it off in the face of all the other underworld mafia bosses. When Titan visits him, as they planned beforehand, he grants Titan his autonomy. What they are really unaware of is that Mr. Liu has survived, thanks to his loyal bodyguard. We go back sometime into the past, as Scott is enjoying his time with his sister Jessica and her 10-year-old daughter Gretchen at the park feeding pigeons. They have a nice time and decide to head back, with Scott going off to buy coffee. Just then, the city of Chicago is bombarded with the fight between Omni-Man and Invincible. More than 2,000 lives were lost, with buildings collapsing one after the other, and Scott was a mere spectator to the deaths of his beloved sister Jessica and her daughter Gretchen. In the middle of the massacred streets, he just cries and cries and cries. Sometime later, Scott follows the district attorney to the parking lot and presents her with a document with 3,000 signatures to investigate Invincible and put him on trial for the deaths that went unaccounted in the Chicago massacre. But to his great surprise, the DA turns his request down. This makes him furious as he throws the files away. It feels like Invincible is really invincible. The next day, as Scott is actively working for the GDA Research Center, he studies the footage of Invincible from the day of the attack and takes his time to eavesdrop on the GDA new research tech for his future work. There are a number of techs which are being developed light years ahead of the rest of the world, and Scott is up to something. Donald comes to meet with the scientists and seems like they are onto him. Interesting. That afternoon in the Pentagon employees' cafeteria, Scott lashes out at Invincible with his fellow coworkers. Although they don't exactly approve of everything Invincible does, they're taken aback by Scott's behavior. Someone is not exactly an Invincible fan. That afternoon, Elephant is running havoc in front of a burger joint against people eating beef. Come on, man. Oliver flies in hard and low and delivers a thundering blow to the elephant. Mark and Eve are with him, but Oliver does not listen to anything Mark has to say. Eve joins in and advises him not to harm anything around, and surprisingly, he listens to her every word. They buy burgers and fries like anybody would do after a fight, and enjoy it on top of a building. Oliver has questions on why people will not forgive their father, Omni-Man, for his actions, because he has helped a lot of people in the past. But Mark still fails to explain the real effect of their father's actions on humanity. Later that day, Scott dresses in a suit and calls himself Powerplex, and his wife attaches powerful electric discharges to his body stolen from the GDA for his final transformation. He is clearly out for blood. That night, at Grayson's place, Paul made a lovely dinner for everyone. Becky congrats Eve on her high scores in college, and Paul asks of their new business, on providing special security for the penitentiary. Later, when Becky and Paul try to share a moment of their own, Oliver sneaks up on them, and Mark has to drag him out. As Powerplex decides it's time to call out Invincible, as he jumps down to the city center, raising havoc. Mark, Eve, William, and Rick are joined by Amber and Kyle for a bowling game since it's William's birthday. Amber and Mark seem happy about their lives with their partners, and when the TV shows Powerplex calling out Mark, he just switches it off. It's game time. Powerplex is threatening the whole city until Invincible shows up, and somehow, Shapesmith shows up instead. Even the police have no idea who he is. Powerplex is angry and starts fighting Shapesmith since no one listens to him. Although Shapesmith gains the upper hand, Powerplex is able to build up strength and attack him once and for all. Shapesmith is almost dead and Powerplex escapes. He goes home and his wife says no one's tracking him yet. But the next day at the memorial, he can get revenge. The Graysons get ready to go to Chicago for the memorial, and Paul is very uncomfortable flying in the car while Mark carries it. Meanwhile, Rudy advances in his experiments, and with his robots, finds a solution for Monster Girl's de-aging problem and finally cures her. She is overwhelmed and hugs him in tears. Ray goes to see Rex, and they talk about their future plans on the rooftop. Ray has had enough of this unending hero life and wants a normal one to enjoy her real self. But Rex has other ideas, since he is nobody without his Rexplode. They hug each other before going their separate ways. At the memorial, the Graysons take their seats, but soon, mayhem arrives with Powerplex. He shouts out to Invincible as he vows to deliver justice and vengeance for all the lost lives. Mark is held back, and Eve flies over to confront Powerplex. It's not an easy fight since Powerplex is not that typical weak-minded villain, but after battling it out, Eve manages to subdue him somewhat at the end. The Guardians arrive, led by Immortal, and they take it from there. But unfortunately, while transporting Powerplex to the Pentagon, he builds up his electric strength and busts out of the prison truck. Mark meets with Donald, who hands over every detail regarding Powerplex, aka Scott. They learn just then that Powerplex has taken a woman and child as hostage until Invincible comes to him. Although he's going too far with this, his wife supports him fully, as he has no intention of hurting any of them. Invincible arrives and confronts him. Although he asks him to stop this nonsense attack, Powerplex has gone too far in his head. Invincible tries to rescue the tied-up woman and the child, but the woman spits at him. Powerplex asks why only he gets to live while all the others die, and releases huge amounts of electricity on Invincible in order to end him. But alas, the energy waves burn the woman and the child alive. What have you done, Scott? The Invincible is still standing, and Scott just erased the only part which was alive in his life. When Powerplex tries to end everything, Invincible wraps him up and subdues his electric energy. Scott is taken by the GDA and is kept in the penitentiary under severe restrictions. Mark tries to talk to him and comfort him, but Scott is too far gone. Meanwhile, Mark and Eve talk on his roof just like every other night, but once again, a robot drone is closely watching them. And this time, Angstrom is revealed to be the one behind all this, and he has recruited other Invincibles from other dimensions. It's about to go down. Some time ago, Invincible had just killed Angstrom Levy and walked away in horror. Unknown to him, Levy was still barely alive, with just enough strength and consciousness to warp himself to another world, where 3 scientists would save and heal him. Day 1 of the Invincible War. Angstrom begins his plan by opening portals and sending all the alternative Invincibles through. He instructs them to cause as much destruction as possible so that everyone in the world will see Invincible, fear Invincible, and hate Invincible. Meanwhile, Mark and Eve are relaxing at Mark's home when Eve receives a call from Peyton Penitentiary, which is under attack by Mohawk Invincible. He cynically mocks the facility, dismissing it as merely a prison. Elsewhere, Viltrum Invincible battles Wolfman, revealing that he has killed him once before and will do it again. In China, Sinister Invincible clashes with Best Tiger, while in Earth's atmosphere, Tech Jacket fights Mustache Invincible. The world is descending into hell, and I'm afraid there's no stopping it. Mark soon arrives at Peyton Penitentiary, where he finds himself face to face with Mohawk Invincible, the one responsible for the destruction at the prison. A fierce battle ensues, with Mark ultimately defeating his variant by slamming his fists into his ears. However, Knockout, Kid Thor, and Bolt arrive on the scene, mistakenly assuming Mark is one of the invading variants and attacking him. Amid the chaos, Powerplex seizes the opportunity to escape, but his relief quickly turns to horror when he comes face to face with Mohawk Invincible, who effortlessly takes him down. Eventually, Mohawk Invincible is overpowered by the combined might of Invincible, Knockout, Bolt, and Kid Thor. Bolt reassures Mark that they can handle the situation from here. Meanwhile, Debbie, Oliver, April, Amber, Kyle, William, and Rick watched the news as it broadcasted reports of major cities around the world being attacked by multiple individuals resembling Invincible. Determined to help fight the evil duplicates, Oliver changed into his Kid Omni-Man costume. However, Debbie warned him not to return home if any of the alternate Marks showed up. At the United States Penitentiary, Cecil and Donald observed as a group of Reanimen brutally attacked Flax and Invincible. Amid the chaos, Donald revealed that there were 18 different versions of Invincible wreaking havoc across the world. Fortunately, Flax and Invincible was not as powerful as the Invincible from the main timeline. With the noisemaker damaged, Cecil ordered Donald to have the scientists build more. Cecil's response was simple but decisive. They would make calls to everyone and enlist every hero available to combat the alternate versions of Mark. Day 2 of the Invincible War. Britt began ordering heroes into the transporters, rallying a diverse group to join the battle against the evil Invincibles. Meanwhile, Kid Omni-Man lifted a pile of rubble to rescue a trapped civilian when he suddenly spotted someone he thought was Invincible. Before he could react, Cowl Invincible struck first, taking him down and preparing to finish him off with a chunk of rubble. However, Kid Omni-Man recovered just in time, dodging beneath the variant's legs before landing a powerful punch to his back. Invincible and Adam Eve fly across the city, witnessing the devastation, with alternate Marks wreaking havoc everywhere. At that moment, they spot Veil Invincible battling a group of heroes. Without hesitation, Invincible and Adam Eve swoop in, managing to overpower Veil Invincible, until Omnimark joins the fight. Veil Invincible orders Omnimark to leave, but he refuses, eager for a real challenge. Sensing the escalating danger, Invincible urges Adam Eve to leave, but she refuses, determined to stand her ground. As a result, Mark engages Veil Invincible, while Eve faces off against Omnimark. During the battle, Omnimark quickly overwhelms Adam Eve, snapping her leg in half. Just as he prepares to finish her off, Invincible intervenes, hurling Veil Invincible at him. Holding Eve in his arms, Mark is confronted by Omnimark, who presents him with a cruel ultimatum. He cannot save his girlfriend and fight off his evil variants at the same time. However, before Omnimark can strike again, Cecil unleashes a squad of Reanimen to attack both Veil Invincible and Omnimark, buying Mark and Eve enough time to escape. Watching from headquarters, Donald urges Cecil to send him into the field. Cecil reluctantly agrees and orders him to find Britt. Invincible then spent the rest of the war staying next to Adam Eve. Meanwhile in Egypt, lensless Invincible crashes through the tomb of Kahor, where the Spectre attempts to use his body for possession. Kahor screams out that he cannot survive outside of his tomb as he crawls back down, with Riley carrying Jane out of the tomb, having been freed from their imprisonment. Sinister Invincible was seen battling a lizard-themed hero in the desert. Maskless Mark wrestles against Hunk, easily pushing him across the sand before killing him. Business Baby and a green hulking hero fights Target Invincible in Paris. At the Guardians of the Globe base, Black Samson and Shapesmith lay injured while surrounded by many corpses of Duplicate's clones. After throwing Immortal over his shoulder, Darkwing drops from above, only for lensless Invincible to grab him by the heel and slam him onto the ground, breaking his leg. Enraged by his teammate getting injured, the Immortal flies in and pummels lensless Invincible. Lensless Invincible effortlessly kills two of Duplicate's clones before wrestling with the Immortal once again. Lensless Invincible uses his foot to decapitate the Immortal before throwing his head to kill a Duplicate clone. Luckily, Darkwing jumps in, sacrificing himself by dragging lensless Invincible into the Shadow Realm, where both were then eaten by the monsters in there. Both Black Samson and Shapesmith woke up, and the team was soon patched up by the medics. In the Teen Team base, Retro Invincible has defeated Rexplode and Monster Girl, destroying Robot's drones. Retro Invincible soon found Robot's human body, but before he could finish him off, Bulletproof came in and attacked Retro Invincible. Rex wakes up, but finds himself bleeding from an open wound he had gotten earlier. Rex tells Bulletproof that they're better off with someone who can fly, before instructing him to get everyone out, assuring him that he has a plan. Rexplode engages Retro Invincible, but is quickly overpowered. The variant lifts Rex by the neck, mocking him and calling his efforts pointless, just like his life. As Rex clutches his wounds, Retro Invincible continues his monologue, belittling him for being even dumber than the Rexplode from his own world. But Rex has the last word. He smirks and reveals that he's taking Retro Invincible down with him. With that, Rex charges up his entire skeleton, triggering a devastating suicide explosion that kills Retro Invincible at the cost of his own life. Shrinking Ray, Bulletproof, and Rudy watch in shock as Rexplode goes out in a blaze of glory, ascending like a true hero. Meanwhile, Debbie monitors the news from Paul's house, having left her home just in time to avoid a confrontation with Mohawk Mark. The Wolfman recovers from his fight with Viltrum Invincible, only to find himself standing in the midst of the destruction caused by Sinister Mark. CW Mark was killed by an unknown hero. Burley is seen hugging shrapnel, crying as he mourns over his teammate. In the midst of all the destruction, Britt pulls out Donald, who is alive, but his body is badly damaged. Bulletproof Invincible was killed by a bunch of Reanimen. Mohawk Mark continues destroying another city. Later in the day, Longhair Invincible was killed by Kid Omni-Man and Throwbolt, who are carrying an injured heroine away after a very difficult battle. Powerplex is seen standing over a dead Invincible variant in the Earth's atmosphere. Tech Jacket is seen looking down on Earth after killing Mustache Invincible in battle, before flying down to help out in the war. Day 3 of the Invincible War. Despite the deaths of many Invincibles, the remaining Invincibles float over the destroyed cities, before being summoned by Angstrom Levy to meet over the Grayson's house to move on to Phase 2 of his plan. Angstrom Levy proceeds to praise alternate marks, and that the attack would make the world think of the war when they remember his name. Angstrom then orders the alternate marks to bring Invincible to him so that he can pay him back face to face, only for Sinister Mark and the other variants refusing to do so. Alternate marks face Angstrom, with Sinister Mark threatening him to give them their dimensions they want, otherwise they would all kill him. But before any of the alternate Invincibles could kill him, Angstrom Levy opens his portal, startling them long enough for him to summon his drones and send them into the desert planet he had trapped the mainline Mark in before. It was then when Cecil teleported the mainline Invincible to confront Angstrom, where Angstrom uses his drones to attack Invincible, sharing that he has surgeons ready to treat him in case Invincible is too much for him to handle. Invincible and Angstrom Levy continue their fight, where Invincible dodges the portals, which impresses Angstrom, who continues to attack him with his drones. As Angstrom Levy sends hordes of drones to push Invincible into a portal, he assures him that he will bring him back after he destroys everything he loves. That angered Invincible to overpower the drones, closing in onto Angstrom Levy, just as the portal-opening villain's drones began to slowly deplete in numbers. Invincible then grabs Angstrom Levy as Kid Omni-Man arrives, telling his brother to kill Angstrom Levy before he escapes. But before Invincible can do so, Angstrom Levy has one more drone that struck Invincible in the head, distracting him long enough for him to open a portal. Mark reaches out, grabbing Angstrom by the arm, but the portal closes, slicing off his arm. Angstrom goes up to his technicians. His plan failed. He orders them to fix his wound so that he can bring all the Invincibles back and finish this. However, the technicians refuse to respond. The technicians then tell Angstrom that he works for them now. By the end of the war, many heroes were killed and injured. A recovering immortal no longer decides and withdraws from being a superhero for good, and begins a full-fledged relationship with Kate. Major cities around the world were reduced to ruins. Hundreds of thousands of lives were lost in the event, and the military was forced to transport as many survivors as possible to various locations. Overwhelmed with sadness, anger, guilt, and frustration, Invincible returned to visit Eve before meeting up with Cecil and the Guardians of the Globe. Cecil briefed everyone on the situation and asked Invincible to lead the Guardians, but he refused. As Cecil walked Invincible out of the building, he attempted to comfort him after everything that had happened, though Invincible still harbored distrust towards him. Taking part in the cleanup of the city, Invincible's small reprieve will not last, as Conquest arrives, here to check on Invincible's progress on conquering planet Earth. As Mark stands face to face with the feared Viltrumite Conquest, he refuses to back down. It has been a relentless battle up to this point, and Mark has had enough. Conquest mocks him at every turn. Despite Mark's best efforts to counter the relentless blows, it seems futile. Conquest is several times more powerful, mercilessly pummeling Mark into the ground, nearly breaking his bones with every strike. For a brief moment, Mark gains the upper hand, launching Conquest into space and delivering a devastating final blow. But to his horror, Conquest remains standing, calm and composed, as if untouched. The man is unstoppable. Two warriors clash mid-air, strangling each other as they plummet back toward Earth. Debbie and Paul are watching the live feed from the news, and she is on the verge of breaking down. Oliver wants to help Mark, and Debbie understands it. Oliver tries to catch up to the battle, but the Conquest and Mark are moving at the speed of light while exchanging blows. Mostly, it's Mark getting beaten up or defending. Oliver punches the Conquest as hard as he can when Conquest was about to crush Mark. Surprisingly, Conquest is pleased with the arrival of Oliver, another body that he can crush into a puddle. Once again, Conquest goes after Mark, and this time, the mockery is on another level as he drags his body through buildings and streets, laying waste to millions. Meanwhile, Eve is still at the Pentagon hospital, and her parents are beside her. They witness the whole scenario on live TV, and in that moment, Eve gains consciousness back. She talks to her parents and then sees what's happening on TV and insists on joining Mark. Cecil is called into the room, and Eve demands to be released immediately so she can help Mark. Back on the battlefield, once again, Oliver counters on Conquest when he was about to kill Mark, as he has already broken his leg. But this time, Oliver is not so lucky, as Conquest gets to hold him and tries to rip him apart from his torso, holding him above his head. Mark hears the pleading cries from Oliver and turns into a beast as he charges onto Conquest. Oliver is released, and Cecil and his medics take him in immediately. Conquest drags Mark's body through the sea, and then, just like his father did once, Conquest drags him through hundreds of people in the speed of light, killing them instantly. This is just too horrific to even watch. When Invincible turns up his gears for one last time, Adam Eve arrives with her magic and flare. There onward starts the battle between the warmongering Conquest and the divine goddess like Adam Eve. She puts up her magical defenses one after the other, and Conquest has to break down each one. But it seems like Adam Eve is tiring quickly with all the energy she is conjuring for her magic, and Conquest is not breaking a sweat. At the end, Conquest reaches her, breaks down her defenses, and to the utmost horror of Mark, who is watching, he breaks her jaw and pierces her gut, pulling out her intestines. Adam Eve is coming down in a freefall, and Mark somehow catches her. She is almost gone for good, and Mark is holding her with tears running down his cheeks while Conquest is mocking their pathetic lives. Mark roars into battle once more and breaks his hand and the metal hand of Conquest in the process. The fight goes on as the duo exchanges blows, but it's Mark who's getting pinned down once again. When Mark is about to go down for the second time, Eve rises once again, but this time, it's a totally different Eve. She is glowing like a true goddess and shoots pure atomic magic with her body to Conquest, and he goes down instantly. Eve falls down knocked out and fully at the same time. Mark is concerned about her, but Conquest has gotten up once again, but with his whole body burnt with Eve's magic. When Mark tries to punch Conquest, he breaks his other hand as well. But the amazing thing is, Mark, with both his arms gone, headbutts the freak of nature as hard as he can and goes on for at least a couple of minutes, until Conquest's skull turns into a mushy pulp. Mark then drags himself to Eve and tells her that he loves her, before the couple goes unconscious. Cecil and the heroes arrive to assess the situation. Mark awakens in the hospital and is greeted by his girlfriend Eve, who is actually doing well. Better than Mark, at least. Debbie apologizes for bringing him into this world, though Mark says he does not blame her. At Rex's funeral, Rudy decides to change his name to Rex to honor him, and Eve is extremely broken with the passing of Rex, but Mark consoles her. Mark expresses his gratitude that she is alive and well. After hearing Mark's true feelings, Eve becomes emotional and runs into his arms. Later, Eve uses her magic to undress Mark, and they both lie down to become one with each other. As the world rebuilds, Livingston builds up an army of Sequid-possessed humans. A group of aliens find Battle Beast, and the technicians begin to use Angstrom to claim a new world. Cecil reveals to Donald he has captured a comatose Conquest and placed him in an underground prison, intending to interrogate him about the Viltrum Empire. Mark tells Oliver he was right to kill people, promising to do so to anyone who threatens their family. Darkblood meets with a demon overlord to help reinstate him as Hell's ruler by exploiting a powerful being on Earth. Seems like it's going to be very interesting when we meet the next time, isn't it? Thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more awesome videos. Have a nice day.